Hi, I'm the Genetics Gal, and today I'm going to be talking about feedback. I've been thinking a lot about feedback over the last few months. I had to give a huge presentation for one of the requirements for my graduate program in March. And a week and a half before, I gave a practice talk in front of my lab. And afterwards, they gave me constructive criticism going slide by slide. And I was okay during it, but afterwards I basically had to stop myself from crying all the way through lunch. And I hadn't realized how hard it was going to be to get all that feedback, and so I've been thinking about it ever since. And interestingly, everyone who I've talked to since, almost everyone says that they also really struggled before after their practice talk for their first committee meeting. Because it totally hits them out of the blue how hard it is to get feedback, and then people seem to get amnesia, and so we don't necessarily tell the next year, oh, just be aware that it's going to be really hard to get feedback. And so feedback is something that I think, or criticism is something that is just so common in academia. It's just like part of the currency of academia, or how you prove yourself. And so I don't know how this varies in other places. I'm sure there's also many other careers where this is also the case. But it seems like negative criticism is a much more common reaction that people have in academia than is positive feedback. And I think that what would have helped me with being able to get through that practice talk okay would have been some positive feedback. And my lab may have given me some positive feedback. I don't remember any, and it's hard to say whether that was just, focusing on all that negative feedback and forgetting the positive. But it's also possible that as they were going through, they just saw so many things they want to give me feedback on. They forgot to mention some positive things as well. And so ever since then, I've been trying really hard to sandwich constructive criticism with positive feedback, which is actually something that I learned about in when I was taking American Sign Language, and they talked about the fact that in hearing culture, it's much more common to sandwich feedback, whereas in deaf culture, you just say the thing bluntly. So ever since then, I've been aware of this sandwich and decided to stick to that method of giving feedback. So I was TAing for a class last quarter, as people saw me talking about obsessively for the entire time online and in person. And so I immediately was thrown into the situation where I had to give so much feedback. And luckily I had just had the experience of recognizing how incredibly important it is to hear positive things about the things that you worked on, in addition to, hearing about what could be improved. And so I made a concerted effort to, as I was grading, in addition to pointing out, I pointed out so many things I want them to fix. I really want them to learn. It's not like I was just letting them get away with, whatever. But I also very frequently would write great or awesome point, love your graphs, or point out when I noticed that someone had improved on something. And I tried to encourage them also. I let them know that this was something I was trying to do. And since they're the next generation, or I guess probably the same generation as me, but of young professionals, I want them to also go out in the world and remember to say nice things when you're saying hard things as well. And so this actually came up again for me personally. So I was giving a whole bunch of feedback to my students and got a whole bunch of experience, making sure to give it, give it out according to the way I think is easier to receive. But I, of course, also have been getting feedback for my teaching, and so not only did I sort of hear feedback just sort of trickle in from students or from the instructor, but also, this week today I was able to download evals that people had filled out for me. And so I got the experience of, so what I've noticed is that when people get feedback, even in cases in which it's overwhelmingly positive, it's incredibly common to focus on just the negative. Of course, I'm not the only one who's noticed this. This is a common phenomenon. And I sort of had the same experience as well. So on my feedback, or basically the most common type of criticism that I was hearing throughout the quarter, is that the various extra kinds of activities that I did. So my students were able to participate in lots of different thinking point opportunities where, they did some sort of extra learning or activity where they got the experience of sharing or stuff like that. And also in exchange for thinking points, which is a currency that I made up. And I also often had a lot of things that I was excited to share with them about. And so I would start off the lab by, with lots of these various thinking point opportunities and sharing my thoughts. And it took up a lot of time, and my lab always got out later than the other section did. And of course, time is very important to these students who are incredibly busy. And so my evaluations definitely mentioned that. And I expected that today, and when I saw the evaluations, and I was actually okay with it for the most part, probably because there was a lot of positive stuff in there, and that really helped. But actually, we also did some mid-quarter evaluations, like about 2/3 of the way through, the students were able to fill out evaluations, and I downloaded them. They were in this Excel document, and I remember I increased the column that had the feedback, and I immediately jumped out at me a couple of specific pieces of criticism about sort of the time management aspect. And it really hit me hard. I was thinking about it all day. And the funny thing is, one of those evaluations wasn't even from my student. It said, I wasn't in Masha's section, but I've had TAs before who tend to take, do a lot of extra activities. And anyway, it really did hit me hard. And so I just want to open a dialogue about feedback, how best to give it, how to deal with receiving feedback, the benefits of feedback, because of course we want to improve. We don't want to just never hear what the issues are. So I'd love to hear what people's experiences are. If you want to tell me about specific times that you've dealt with criticism and things you've learned, or maybe issues you still struggle with that you just want to share about, I would absolutely love to hear anything about that. Feel free to comment below. All right, thanks for listening.